For my son's birthday, I didn't buy him a toy car. I built him a modular emergency fleet that can mix, match, light up, and make sounds.
Ambulance reporting for duty.
My son is obsessed with vehicles. Ambulances, fire trucks, construction machines. Every time we're outside, he points them out like it's a celebrity. See the cement truck? So for his birthday, I didn't want just one toy. I wanted something that could grow with him. That's when the idea clicked. Every vehicle would be made of two parts, a front and a rear, which means he can mix and match however he wants, turning one toy into dozens of possibilities. My earlier designs were pretty boxy. They worked, but they didn't feel quite special enough. So after some brainstorming with AI and many ideas that just didn't quite fit, I decided on the theme for this entire line. Future fleet. One that would reflect real-world emergency and construction vehicles, but with an extra flair, something that would make them cool. Flashy with LEDs that would draw any toddler's eye. Turbines, blasters, exaggerated forms, and yet still seem familiar, but ultimately look way more exciting than a typical toy car. For someone who isn't very artistically gifted, my art skills being limited to stickable drawing, I found AI to be super helpful. ChatGPT was fantastic for ideas, but I found Gemini to be better at creating the visuals that matched my prompts. After many nudges and tweaks, I treated these like concept art, not so much the final model. After all, AI is great at drawing things, but less great at explaining how to survive toddlers. To speed things up, I used triple AI to generate base models that were helpful, but the geometry wasn't quite production ready. Some textures didn't make sense, and some shapes were confused. Like this word police got turned into some odd shapes on the door, so I took these base models and threw it into Blender. In Blender, I cleaned up the meshes, rebuilt surfaces, and in some cases had to remodel the entire part from scratch, using what Triple gave me as references. Then I brought them into Fusion 360, and this is where all the real work happened. Dimensions, tolerances, alignment, engineering. I had to create components that would work for 3D printing. It needed spaces for electronics and LEDs and sound cards. I wanted multi-colors without the need to paint anything. The wheels needed to turn, and I wanted the blasters to light up. And this is where most of the time was spent, trying to make these requirements possible and yet still work together. And here's where things got real complicated. I didn't just want the halves to snap together. I wanted one button per vehicle to control everything, ideally on the back half. It meant the battery, button, relay, delay chip all live in the rear half, but I had LEDs and components in both. And I needed the power to travel between that hot swap connection. So it's not just mechanical, but it's electrical as well. The first rendition of the hot swap clip was clunky and big, ugly, and felt out of place. I messed around with magnets, but they weren't just quite strong enough to hold up to play. After trying multiple clips, and magnet designs, I ended up sourcing pogo pins from China. Spring-loaded electrical contacts which work perfect for this build. With the halves connected, power would transfer automatically. But this introduced another challenge. Every vehicle, present and future, had to line up at the exact same height. If they were even slightly off, the whole system would fail. So it meant standardizing the clip mechanism and ensuring that all my vehicles in future were designed around that clip. Each vehicle also makes sounds, much like WarCraft 3, which had little peons that would say work, work. I wanted some voice included in the project, like fire truck reporting for duty. And that's when I found Epidemic Sound's AI voice feature. And for app playback, I found these cheap soundboards meant for interactive greeting cards and stuck it in there. The boards run on their own 3.7 volt battery, but my LEDs ran on two AAA batteries. So it meant having two power systems, but controlled by one button. Now, an electrical engineer or anyone with more brains than myself may have figured a better solution. But I had some relays lying around, bulky as they may be, they allowed for one button to trigger both circuits. I then added a delay chip so each press of the button only turns the lights on for about 30 seconds. No need for any off button, just press and let them run. And I wouldn't have to worry about flat batteries too quickly. Now, these switches that came with the sound button had only 0.2 millimeters of travel, which just doesn't feel very fun. So I designed a larger button with proper travel, springiness, and bounce, something that feels obvious and satisfying for a toddler. Printing was its own challenge. Multicolored prints look great, but support structures can destroy the look, the surface finish. So I had to design around hiding support scars or even modeling my own supports in some cases. It was a ton of trial and error and a couple of failed prints. My goal for this project was no full sanding, filling, or painting. I wanted it to be mostly 3D printed, simple but tough. Because toddler play includes driving them into walls, doors, or even some flying cars. Uh-oh, crash. My earlier design on the fire truck, having been the very first build, was very flawed. But I reckon as I moved through the print and the design of each vehicle, I managed to improve on the designs, making them a lot more printable as time went on. And with that said, let's have a look at the first rendition of the future fleet. Uh-oh, crash. Clearly, with each vehicle, they came with their own design challenges. A big part being having enough space for all the electronics. But I reckon they turned out better than I expected. This fleet is designed to grow. Future versions might add flywheels to the wheels so they have inertia to keep rolling. I may also look into downsizing the electronics to more custom or purpose-built parts, rather than dig into my bin of electronics that I have, such as the relays, which don't quite help with cable management internally. And who knows, maybe one day this becomes a remote controlled or even upsized into a ride-on vehicle. It's not just a one-off toy, it's a full system. Look, I'm not an engineer, I'm a chiropractor. That's my full-time job. That and being a dad, it takes up most of my day. Building things like this and making YouTube videos happens in whatever spare time I can find. Starting a channel whilst designing and building from scratch is honestly pretty hard. So if you enjoyed this, liking, subscribing, or even just commenting really helps. And if you like watching someone learn as they go and build cool stuff for their kid, welcome to Level Up Papa. See you next time. Bye.